Hello everybody, what is going on? My name is Steggy, and in this video, I'm going to tell you what the best camera is for live streaming. So to preface, this video is going to be focused on the larger sensor cameras, as in mirrorless cameras, DSLRs, or Micro Four Thirds. Now, I know that camcorders and action cameras offer unique benefits for live streams, but if you're looking for the highest quality camera, you really need that larger sensor size in order to have the rich detail and the shallow depth of field that these larger sensors offer. So a lot of these things that I point out from some of these brands are specific to the large sensor cameras, the DSLRs or the Micro Four Thirds variety, and this does not apply to camcorders or action cameras that some of these companies might also produce. So a lot of people ask, using Camlink for streaming, what the best camera is to use for live streaming, because now instead of just having a Logitech C920 and a Logitech Brio, there's a million other options out there because there's a million different cameras out there. And so after using a lot of these cameras personally myself, as well as just researching all the different cameras out there, I've come across basically the short list on what is the best camera for live streaming, and I'm going to share that with you guys now. So number one, the first thing I want to do is I want to eliminate other possible contenders right off the bat. So the number one brand that I'm Xing off this list right away is Nikon. The reason why Nikon is not on this list is because not a single Nikon can stay on for more than 30 minutes without the software shutting it off. This has nothing to do with performance. This was like an old tax evasion kind of law, like to evade like these import duties. And all of the companies used to do it because if you could record for more than 30 minutes, you were classified as a video camcorder. And so there was like an extra 5 to 10% tax in the EU. So this caused a lot of issues for their profit margin. And so a lot of these companies decided to put that software limit in there in order to avoid that. And to this day, Nikon still falls under that category. So they're gone. If you have a DSLR from Nikon, I'm sorry, but there's no workarounds. So the second company I want to take off this list will become as a little bit of a surprise, but it's Canon. And this is a little surprising because I have been a preacher of Canon for some time, and I used to use a Canon for my live streams. The problem with Canon is, so recently they fixed the whole 30-minute issue that Nikon still has. So Canon has that going for it. But the problem with Canon is you have to turn the cameras into manual focus only mode in order for it to have a clean HDMI out, which is a huge issue because if you bob back and forth like this, you're changing the focal plane from your lens where you have it focused, and you'll become out of focus really easily, especially if you're using a shallower lens. The basic gist is it's manual focus only unless you pay like $4,000 for the really high-end model, which I just can't in good conscience recommend that for live streaming. So I don't recommend Canon. If you happen to have a Canon camera and you want to save some money, by all means, use it for live streaming. Just be aware of that shortcoming of it, that you'll need to turn it into manual focus, and you'll just need to figure that out. The other thing you could try with Canon, which Nikon doesn't have as an option, is there's an app called Magic Lantern, which is like a hacked firmware that you can use for your Canon camera, which gives it some extra abilities than the stock OS provides. And some of this could be workarounds for this whole autofocus thing. So with Canon, you at least have that option, but just for beginners' sake, I would take this off the list. The third guy off the list, which is a little bit... it's something that people wouldn't really think off the top of their head, but it'd be Panasonic. Panasonics are phenomenal cameras. The quality is really great. They're the Lumix G5, the GH5, and all these guys. Really great Micro Four Thirds cameras. The problem with Panasonic right now is these cameras have really poor autofocusing systems. So kind of like the Canon. I mean, it's better than the Canon because it can autofocus, but it has issues, and a lot of photographers and videographers, well, mostly videographers, because it doesn't really happen in photography. If you see online, they'll complain about this problem that the Lumixes have. So again, I don't tend to recommend them. So we're left with one brand, and I'm going to talk to you about 3 bodies from this brand and what the best option is, and that's Sony. Sony was kind of a sleeper brand for the last like 10 years. They were kind of like a distant third place between Nikon and Canon, but now they're like the clear front runner for basically all forms of cameras. And so I'm going to cover three different cameras right now. The first one I'm actually using right here, and this is the A5100, which I happen to have another one right in front of me just for illustrative purposes. So the reason why I love this camera is, number one, the cost. So this provides you 1080p 60 FPS video, and for the stock lens and the body, it's $500, which is not cheap by any means, but it's about the cheapest you can get for the big sensor, shallow depth of field quality that you want to actually like be better for your stream. Because the big limitations of webcams is their small sensor size can't really convey shallow depth of field at all. It's just physically impossible. I've done the math. It sucks because I wish I could get, a picture that looks like this in a tiny webcam, but unfortunately you can't unless you have a bigger sensor size. So a lot of people take a look at the A5100 because of the cost. A lot of people are actually jumping up to the next price up, which is the A6000, which is $100 more. It's $600 with the same lens. So one thing I want to get right off the bat is do not waste that extra $100 for the A6000 because there's barely any upgrades to it that actually matter just in general, but especially for streaming. So the only two things it has above this camera is it has a slightly faster FPS count if you're taking photos, which if you're really concerned about that, you're probably not looking at this price point anyway. And it's got a hot shoe, but it also doesn't have a mic in port, so you have like one microphone to choose from. So these are all outside streaming use cases where you might find that you want an A6000 versus this. It's also got like a more metally body, but that's whatever. The thing it lacks is it lacks this flip up screen. So a lot of the higher end Sony cameras, they pull out and they can move up and down. And let me actually show you with my A7 III. So they can pull out the screen like this, and it basically just does that. But that only helps you if you're actually taking the photo from down low or up high. But it doesn't do much if you're trying to do selfies. But this camera allows you to flip up the screen completely. So I can actually see myself right now behind the lens, which is super convenient for streaming, so I can maintain eye contact with the camera, but still see my composition, make sure I'm in focus and everything. And this works with the HDMI output. So for $100 less, you're getting the same exact quality as the A6000, but you're also getting that added benefit of having a free monitor, essentially. So that's the A5100, and this is my number one most recommended camera. So the second one I want to get into, let's just do this really quickly, actually. I'll get the high end out of the way. This is a Sony A7 III. This is a phenomenal camera, and you can get phenomenal quality with it, especially if you throw on a really good prime lens. You can get way better depth of field or shallow depth of field than this image provides. However, $2,000 body, this lens I wouldn't even recommend for streaming. This is about $1,000 in itself. You're just coming across a law of diminishing returns where you're putting more money for less of a difference, especially when you're streaming at about 5 Mbits. I wouldn't really ever recommend full frame for that. I just find it to be overkill. So I've had this camera for maybe a year, and I decided to get the A51 over it because I would rather have a dedicated camera to have as my live stream that I don't need to take down. Plus, the money that you save with the camera, you can buy other goodies. And that brings me to the other big recommendation. And I actually don't own the camera, which is going to be kind of ironic, but I have the step above it technically. So this is the A6400 and the A6500. Now, I've got the A6500 here. So you can see this camera, and before I go into too many details, I'm going to switch back to the A5100. So the A6500 is also an APS-C sensor. It can do 4K 30 FPS video though, which is really nice if you have certain use cases for it. The A6400 is a better camera to buy than the A6500 right now. It's coming out in a couple of weeks, and the reason why is it's got way better autofocusing system. It has the same heat management, so it does 4K and it just handles video better in general, like the A6500. it's $300 cheaper because the A6500 is $1,200. The A6400 is only $900, so you're saving a lot of money there. The trademark difference between the two, basically, is that the A6400 does not have in-body image stabilization, which affects you if you're a vlogger or a videographer, but will not affect you at all if you're none of those things. If you are getting a camera for the purpose of live streaming, your camera's going to be stationary like this, so save the money and get the A6400. Also, like the A5100, the A6400 actually features a flip-up screen as well. It's a little bit of a weirder flip-up screen, but you have that. So the the A6500, the A6400 are going to give you identical quality, but the A6400, it just gives you better bang for your buck if you're using this camera for live streaming. Now, if you're using it outside of that, you have a couple more options to weigh because that in-body stabilization on the A6500 is really nice, but the autofocus on the A6400 is just hugely better. And so if there's an update on the A6500, there might be, you might want to go for that, but that remains to be seen. But this is all also like if you're doing YouTube and these other things. So for the purposes of live streaming, realistically, I would just be recommending the A5100 and the A6400. So which one do I recommend? Well, I have a little bit of like a show and tell here thing for you. So here is the A5100, okay? It looks pretty good, I would say. The A5100 doesn't have the in-body image stabilization either. So that's like a higher end feature for like the A7, the A6500, etc. I'll get into questions after. So this is the A5100, and then this is the A6500. Now, besides the FPS difference, because this is in 4K right now, that's scaled down. Now, besides the FPS difference, which one looks better to you? Now, I would say that the A5100 looks better, and that's because I put a better lens on it. So I put on a 16mm f1.4 lens, which allows me to get this background blur. It's a little difficult to get a lot of background blur when the camera's focal length is so wide, but this lens is able to do that. The lens is a little expensive though. It's about $450 to $500, so it's definitely a step up. The A6500, however, I put on the kit lens, which is also 16mm, but it can only close down to 3.5 rather than 1.4. The lower the number is the better in the world of lenses. So basically what I'm trying to showcase here is I could actually have these cameras look identical if I threw on the right lenses. The use case for this 4K mode with the A6400 or the A6500 is if I wanted to do zoom ins like this, because I could do so without losing quality, because when you have a 4K camera in a 1080p canvas, you could digitally zoom up to 4 times without losing any quality, because you're just zooming in like it's 4 times the image of 1080p. And so if you are, if that's part of your workflow as a streamer, if you like to do like comedic zoom-ins where you make a funny face, you might find it invaluable to get that extra resolution so you can do that. In the world of YouTube, 4K is a lot more handy for like digital pans and just being able to punch in digitally in post. Super convenient. And so I shoot in 4K for YouTube, but I only stream in 1080p here. So what I'm trying to showcase here is that for this price, which is, so this is technically $1,300 because it's like a $100 lens with a $1,200 body. But imagine the same thing with the A6400 for $1,000 total. The A5100 and this lens is about $950. So for $50 less, I can get a better picture like this, which I think makes a bigger difference. So one of the things that I'm just trying to put out there is that, the camera isn't the only thing that makes the difference. The lens plays a huge part, and so does your lighting. So like, I have a really nice soft light coming from my Elgato key light. I have it bounced off my wall and it's coming at me really soft. So that paired with a really fast lens, like a lens with that low F number, gives me this shallow depth of field and just makes everything look really good. So if you are in the market for a camera for live streaming, and this camera does pretty good for vlogging as well, as long as you don't really care about the onboard microphone. There might be some instances where you're in like a windy area where, that might not, convey really well with the onboard mic. But other than that, it's really good all around, and it's certainly cheaper. I just bought this one used on eBay for $375 with the lens on there, with a kit lens. This guy right here, and then I threw on the other lens that's about $450 that gives the better results here. So at the end of the day, if you're looking for a camera, I suggest Sony. And if you're looking for a particular model from Sony, I would say that actually the entry level right now, because of where 4K streaming is and everything like that, and just the limited benefits of 4K, I would go with the A5100 because it's got that flip up screen, because it's cheaper, allowing you to put that extra money towards the lens, and just the overall performance for the price that you get. So that'll do it for this video and my opinion on the best camera for live streaming. All the cameras I discussed are going to be linked down in the description panel below, so feel free to check them out. If you have any questions or comments, or you want to let me know what you think the best camera is for live streaming, feel free to leave a comment below. Once again, I'm Steggy, and until my next video, I'll catch you guys later.